The CISO series video chat. Welcome back. Every Friday we do this, although not next Friday, but I'll get to that in a second. Hey, we're going to start off cold. I've got Boyan here. I've got Will here, and they're going to explain in 1 minute, as if they're speaking to the board, what hacking user adoption is, or what user adoption is, and they're going to do it one line at a time, kind of like an improv game. So get ready. They've got 1 minute. I don't have that big clock in front of me, so here we are. This is one minute clock. Gentlemen, you ready? Boyan, you're first. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. 1 minute. Whoops. Let me bring that back. 1 minute. Begin.
Hacking user adoption is how you get your users to engage in fun ways with a new technology.
And if they don't, there's a punitive action.
And if they do, there is tremendous reward.
We don't know what the reward is, but we'll figure it out.
It's Bezos bucks because everybody buys on Amazon.
Which Amazon? AWS? That costs a lot of money.
Only if you don't have a good cloud strategy.
I'm stumbling. Boy, I'm back to you.
This is taking so long.
Wrap it up in 20 seconds.
It's getting users to utilize the technology very quickly.
And technology is good. We've invested heavily in technology, but not the people.
It's about invoking their emotions, motivations, and their user experience.
All right, that's good. Gentlemen,
all right.
Congrats. That was...
I need a drink after that.
That was... You started off good. You veered off into space like Bezos. Then you came back for a landing. All forked out. Let's begin. All right, welcome.
Welcome, everybody. The CISO series video chat is ready to begin.
All right, everybody. Let me explain what's going to happen today. It's just so you know, many of you have been here. Whoops, I just shared my screen and then I stopped sharing my screen. Let me try that one more time. I didn't mean to do that. Slippery fingers, as they call it. Okay. I meant to close it. Close this message. Here we go. All right, today's topic is hacking user adoption, an hour of critical thinking about improving acceptance and usage of new technology. I could have just said that, guys, and wrapped it up. It's all right. Our two guests today are Boyan Simic, who's the interim CEO of Hyper, and also Will Gregorian, who's the head of security and IT operations over at Rhino. Our sponsor for today is Hyper. I want to thank Hyper for sponsoring this. And by the way, they're sponsoring this weekend event that is happening in Newport, Rhode Island that I will be going to immediately after this, where we're going to be recording a live version of the CISO Security Vendor Relationship podcast. More about that later. All right, for those who've never been here before, this is the 6 different ways you can participate. The chat room. You can submit your bad ideas. I am totally expecting some awesome bad ideas in the topic of user adoption. Already I've seen 3 come in. I love the fact that I feel pretty confident you have these locked and loaded before we start. Submit best strategies, and I should make that not just best strategies, unique strategies. I got to change that word best to unique. I want to know unique tips on how you've got people to adopt technology. Join us on video at any time by just typing bring me on. If you've got a question or comment to make, ask a question. You'll see there's questions at the bottom as well, or vote for your favorite question. Now, today's schedule, let's go through this really quickly. Explain it to the board. They just did it. Your bad ideas and questions right there. So we want lots of bad ideas. We'll put the poll up of the bad ideas at 20 minutes past the hour, and we'll vote for your favorite idea. And then also at 20 minutes, we want to know your unique tips. What unique tips do you have in this? At 30 minutes past the hour, we'll play the Department of Yes. And you will also vote for your favorite questions. The unique tip poll will go up as well. And then 40 minutes past the hour, I want the 2 people that were contestants in the Department of Yes to come on with their bad ideas and defend why their bad idea is the worst. We'll play a kind of a version of what's worse. Last questions and final advice, and then we do our meetup. And if you've never done our meetup, it's a ton of fun. So please stick around for that. Next Friday, we're not having a video chat because it's holiday weekend. Actually, I screwed up. I had one scheduled, and I moved it to November. But next Friday, no video chat because of the holiday weekend, Labor Day weekend. The following Friday, hacking alert fatigue. There is a link at the bottom of our screen to register for that video chat. And guess what? You click on that, you will not be taken out of this video chat at all. So don't worry about it. Click on it. Register for next week. If you didn't know this, if you register for a video chat early, you're automatically entered to be one of the people who could win an awesome fleece. And I can't remember who won it last week, or for this week's one, but someone did win as well. Actually, I'll post their name soon. Now, I also want to mention that we are going to have a special Monday night chat. This will be called Hacking the Insider Risk Summit, an hour of critical thinking about creating a security-aware culture. That link at the bottom of the screen is only going to be there for 25 minutes. At 25 minutes past the hour, we're going to change it to the link you see there for the Monday night chat on the 13th. So please register for this one and the Monday night one as well. And I also want to mention that we're now doing our cybersecurity headlines immediately 90 minutes after 90 minutes from now. So 12:30, or actually, hold on, no, when this is over, I guess, I know I'm not following. 12:38 p.m. Pacific. No, we're at 10 a.m. Pacific. So yeah. So in 2.5 hours, in 90 minutes. Oh, I should have said this. I'll say that later. At the end of the show, I'll say starting 90 minutes. It's in 2.5 hours from now. All right, enough of that. I've talked too much. Let's get to the topic of hacking user adoption. What do you say, Will Boyan? You've heard enough of me speak for now on
Let's
this.
do it.
Let's do this. All right, ask your questions, everybody. We want to hear this. I'll start with you, Boyan. By the way, let me ask you, prior to Hyper, how many products have you launched prior to Hyper?
0.
So this is the only one. So this is your only experience of launching product. I want you to admit to some initial mistakes, early days of implementation of trying to get people to actually use your product. What were some mistakes you made that just did not work?
The mistakes that we made were just assuming people would adopt a technology because it's really easy to use. Like you would think that if you make something easier, people are likely to adopt it very quickly. But with something like passwordless in particular, like when we started talking to people, especially older adults, and trying to get them to use the product, they're like, "There's not a password. That means it's not secure. I'm not using it." I'm like, "What?" So little things like that, that you never think about, but it was strange to me.
They're not in your mindset. Will, what failures have you had on user adoption that you thought, oh, this is going to work, and not at all?
Yeah, it's sending lifeless, passive, and arm's length announcements, extortions that usually don't resonate with people. So to Boyan's point, I mean, you send an email, you assume that everybody understands. They don't understand. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't care about it.
Yeah, like you've been living. That's the thing. I got to assume, like when you first launched your product, Boyan, you were living and breathing. And so, and I call this a couple of things: the curse of knowledge, the fact that you're in your own world. You just kind of assume because you've been in this world for so long. Because isn't everyone always thinking about the fact that passwords suck and that we have to, we gotta move on from this? But no, people don't think about that. They think about whatever the hell else, and all of a sudden you're coming in and goes, oh, by the way, we have this new solution to make you more secure, and they're like, what are you talking about? I mean,
yeah, and I think
you realize you're in another place.
John actually mentioned something in there, field of dreams fallacy in the chat.
Build it they will come. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Actually, our stumble was so big that when we first started building the product in the initial few months, we were actually focusing on selling the product to like end users, to like individuals themselves, instead of companies who then provide it to the users. And that was like a huge mistake.
But it works both ways. But it all depends on the price. I mean, we've seen this happen. We've seen the bottom-up approach and we've seen the top-down approach, and we've seen both techniques work. Will, do you have any theory as to why one works as opposed to another?
How much time do we have to discuss this?
Well, we got an hour. It's what we have.
I think the bottom-up approach really works well for the smaller organizations. I can't say that it would ever work for a larger organization. I'm talking about maybe like 1,000 people or more.
Yeah.
And the top-down, it works for the larger organizations, but then it becomes lifeless, to my earlier point. And nobody understands it.
Well, let me ask you, do dictates ever work? Like,
no.
Everyone needs to start using this.
No,
never?
That's draconian. Like, this is actually like, one of the failures of InfoSec community in general is that, everything has to basically be like, adopted, full stop. It comes from the top down. I think that previous mindset just needs to go away. And, we need to acknowledge the fact that people they're not unmanageable in information security. That's one of the failures of information security in general, is that, we assume that we know better than everybody else, and that's not true.
Yeah, one of the things, especially if it's a top-down approach, let's say it's a chief security officer or something saying, you got to use this, everybody. They may use it for a little while, but then guess what? The average tenure of a CISO is like 18 months. So they're going to be leaving soon, and then everybody's going to go back to what they were doing.
Precisely. Yeah, I agree with that. And even look, here's the thing: is like if the CISO is actually sending out that announcement, there is a heavy weight behind that. I would almost wouldn't optimize on the C-level title, and I would probably say that this ought to come from your HR folks who have like a higher level of emotional intelligence. And I'm sorry to sort of throw the community under the bus here, but let's face it, that's the reality. That's what we're basically challenged with. We need to essentially establish security champions within our HR function, as well as legal and every other function that exists within an organization.
That's a really good point. And by the way, let me make a very direct call out to the community in the chat room. Any user, and I mean, I asked for, unique tips later, but, obviously drop them now as you're dropping the bad ideas, of which, wow, we got a lot already. But I'm interested to know, what has actually worked, and also admit to a failure. Like, we tried this and nobody adopted it at all. Boy, actually, tell the very quick story you told in the little promo video we did about sending out T-shirts. First of all, how did the idea come about, and how did it actually work?
We were on a Zoom call with a customer of ours, and we were wearing like a I am Passwordless Are You T-shirt. It's like company propaganda that we give to our employees and such. And we were just on a Zoom call with the customer, and they're like, I would really like some of those. And we're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to say the first 200 people who adopt the product, they get the T-shirt. And we just ordered 200 T-shirts and shipped it to them. And it worked really well. This was back when people were still in offices, but it worked tremendously.
But that's an interesting thing. So if you actually use the T-shirt, or you actually deploy it, you get a free T-shirt. So it was an easy way to get a free T-shirt in there. And then, did people actually wear the T-shirt in the office?
Of course, yeah. They were wearing it. They would walk into meetings, log into the computer without a password, like saying, "Hey, I'm doing this. What are you doing?" And it was luckily it was a company with a culture where you can wear a T-shirt to work, which is always a good thing too.
And by the way, I think what you just mentioned, like someone walking in the office and showing, like, "Hey, look, let me show you how I log in." I got to assume that's kind of probably the best sales technique you could ever ask for, yes?
Yeah, and one of the things that we do with our customers is when they buy a passwordless technology, we really encourage their VIPs, their executives, their head of HR, their CEO, CIO to use the technology, have somebody record them using it, and then post it in their internal chats and via email and send it out. And that, everybody at that point wants to use it too, because ultimately a lot of people do admire leadership at their businesses.
By the way, Grant has a good comment here. Make sure your frontline support, help desk, on-site field personnel are trained on the tool and have a playbook for questions from users. Let me throw to you, Will. Have you dealt stuff with it like that? And I got to refresh. I just realized I'm coming back. Will, you answer.
Yeah, I'll go while David is reconnecting. Nothing like live shows. So yeah, I agree. I think that one of the failures from an implementation adoption perspective is not communicating ahead of time, not allowing enough time to understand the tech, the implementation, making sure that those who are going to basically be on the front lines, to Grant's point, are in fact well informed and well aware of the technology. They understand what it does, and maybe like the advantages and disadvantages, and they're prepared to be able to answer the questions when they come. I mean, let's face it, from a first line, second line, third line perspective, InfoSec isn't running help desk. And, you can't just sort of chug that grenade over and say, well, we implemented, we're secured. Good luck with that.
No, but by the way, that happens. I'm not going to say this is limited to technology. This is a problem we have kind of universally. Think about the person who writes their first book or releases any piece of content or something like, I did all that work, now it's out. Hey, how come nobody's looking at it? Like nobody's reading. Like this is the problem we universally have, that we don't build this into the early stages of our development process. So I want to get into that, but I want to remind everybody, click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for the next video chat. It's happening on September 10th. If you haven't done it, that's only going to be there for 10 more minutes, by the way. So please click on that. Remember, if you register early, you're registered for the raffle to win a fleece. So let me start with you, Boyan. Obviously, you don't have an example to show to this. This is the only product that you have launched, but what do you think would have made launch easier had you planned earlier in the sort of development process of how we're going to get users to adopt this?
Yeah, the communication, the operational aspect of it, right? It's so important. You can have the greatest technology in the world. If people can't operationalize it quickly, you're dead in the water. And, out of necessity, we're a venture capital backed startup. And once you get on that treadmill, you got to keep running faster and faster and faster. And one of the things that you end up really focusing on is a lot of times building features that let you sell the product. And sometimes, you don't focus too much on the features that allow you to operationalize it. So really creating features to operationalize the product, making sure that you have everything ready for the help desk folks to be able to support this thing, making sure that they have all their runbooks, making sure the users have very obvious ways to get help if they do have trouble. Lots of little things, sending them regular updates or, progress bars of how they're doing with adopting the technology, how their company is adopting the technology, all these things that are outside of the actual core use case of actually accessing something that help you get that adoption across the company. It's critical.
Mm-hmm. Have you done early planning well, or there's something you learned later on to do? Because I can't imagine anyone does it the first time.
No, I'm the first one. I'm the poster child for failure. I'll be the first one to admit that. Look, in past lives, I wouldn't have partnered correctly with my counterparts in other departments, and that's, let's face it. I mean, we've actually talked about this. The basics of learning is failure. So you learn from those failures. Now, today, before I even entertain, a new technology, my first step is to really identify the stakeholders as well as the partners that I would have in other functions to be able to sort of strike that conversations, figure out and inquire and understand, their pain points as well as mine, bring it to the table. Let's have a discussion. Let's be humane about it. And then let's go figure out what the tech implementation should look like. I think that, let me put it this way. It's not, I think, this is the only way.
Right. Well, and I'll get to the point, and let's discuss about how the security department sympathizes with the average user, which obviously is not always, not obviously, but it is often not the case. Hey, by the way, we just got our first question in. By the way, I'm shocked that it took us this long to get a question in, because we usually get a flood of them. But you guys have been great to start off with. Let's see what this first question is. It comes from Craig Herter. Other than swag and freebies, how does one effectively sell the features that matter to the prospect? Are there ways to incentivize on the back end that they are effective? So outside of swag, what do you do, Boyan?
It's about just motivating people. At the end of the day, people like playing games, right? So a lot of the times what we've done is with our customers is we will send them because we're a SaaS service primarily, so we can see the statistics of who's logging in a passwordless way the most, and we'll send them a leaderboard of their workforce, sometimes by department perhaps. And they will publish that, and people will get competitive, and they will try to adopt the technology faster just to be highlighted in that executive or company-wide announcement. And things like that you take advantage of people's competitive spirit sometimes, and you put things in place to take advantage of it, and it takes off very quickly.
That's good old-fashioned peer pressure, and that works. Let me just do a quick reminder, 5 more minutes. That link for September 10th video chat will be there, so go ahead and click on that if you haven't done it yet. Will, tell me, what kind of peer pressure have you done, and not necessarily security pushing everyone else, but everyone else pushing each other?
Well, first of all, rarely focus on the advantages, highlight the disadvantages of lack of adoption. And that's a good motivation.
Really? Can you get a little more specific on that?
If you don't do X, here is the intended result. As simple as put. But and I'm overgeneralizing here, but let's face it, like, we can't really go into the minutia of it. From there, I do think that, the Department of Security really needs to become cheerleaders, so to speak.
Yeah.
There needs to be like a certain level of jubilance to the pitch, and I do that quite often. In case you can't tell, I love that, but I also love to basically craft stories around the adoption of the technology, whatever it is that we're doing. It's never ever about, we have this shiny new toy. It's about, we have a shiny new toy, and here's how it's going to help us, and these are the reasons why it's going to help. It's never about peer pressure. I don't know if I want to optimize on peer pressure, to be honest.
Well, I like the idea of the demonstration. I like the idea of the video, how easy it is to do, because I think we get in our minds like, oh God, I'm so focused on this. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to learn, because there's this open-ended feeling of, what is this going to do to me? And then or what am I going to break if I do this? I think there's a lot of that fear. Boy, and I got to assume that happens. Like, oh, once I adopt this, will I ever get into my things again? Like, what if I screw up installing it? Like, I'm sure that fear exists. Yes?
Of course. Look, particularly in passwords, right? People have been using passwords for 60 plus years. And like, if you're going to shift to something else, like it's very easy to go back to what's comfortable, right? And so a lot of times one of the things that we really recommend on user adoption is don't force people into it, right? It should be a gradual approach. And a lot of times for a few months, our customers, for example, will still let people use passwords and this other authentication method. And ultimately they get to choose. And once they start seeing the numbers organically that they want to see, then they flip the switch eventually and really focus on the security part of it. But you never want to force people. But one of the prods that we've seen customers use multiple times is, you can still use your password, but it's got to be 24 characters minimum.
Just make it, like what you say, make it as painful as possible.
So I just to dovetail on that, I think like, there is definitely the approach of like crawl, walk, run. It reminds me of Miller's Law. It's 7 bits of data at any given point that you can basically store. So don't overwhelm them, and you have to basically phase it out from a technology perspective. But unfortunately, today's technology, and even like like the newer technologies, sometimes it's all or nothing from an implementation perspective. So that automatically becomes a default overwhelmness factor. So I value any software company, any software technology that allows me to sort of like implement it in phases and stage it out, so that we can kind of like approach this correctly.
So a couple of good questions came in. I just want to quickly mention that in exactly 2 minutes, the link at the bottom is going to disappear, and we'll have the link for the Monday one on the 13th. So please click on the one now. You see the bottom. And in addition, more importantly, the poll is now live for the best bad ideas. So please vote, because in 8 minutes we'll be playing the Department of Yes, and that'll be good. All right, a couple of great questions. And this first one, I'm going to throw this one to you, Boyan, and then I'm interested to know what you have to say on this, Will. Can you speak to how or what metrics you collect regarding adoption? And you were referencing this just a moment ago, but walk us through a little bit more specifically, Boyan.
People, departments who are adopting the technology the most, you'll quickly see, especially in larger companies, where the technical departments adopt technology way faster than most. And then ultimately you speak with those people and you get their perspective on how to get it to spread faster. Another thing is just watching the behavior of time of day and how frequently they're using the product. We had some guy authenticating like 300 times a day. And I was just like, what is this person doing? And it turns out
logging in, logging out, all constantly.
Well, it turns out like they're going to their computer, hitting the print button on something, walking to the printer, it gets locked, they come back and unlock. And it was just like, it was insane. Like I didn't know.
But okay, so say you see a situation. What do you do when you see a situation where someone's 300 times a day? Like, what is the action at this point?
At that time, you try to think about how can you improve the product to make it to make it easier for them to do that faster. And one of the things, like with our product in particular, like you can log into your computer on your way to your computer. Like you don't have to be in front of it. And a lot of people didn't know that. They're like, I thought I had to be like right next to it to log into it. I'm like, no, you can be like 20 feet away walking up to it and log in. And that changed this guy's worldview. He was like, I was waiting till I was in front of the thing and then starting the process versus walking up to it. Another thing is you obviously look for anomaly detection, right? Like, are people, which people are having trouble, which people are having problems, and sometimes you can proactively go and train certain departments or offer lunch and learns for those departments to help them adopt the technology faster because you see that data up front.
Mm-hmm. So that educates you for training, and that's a question I got coming up. But hold tight, I want to know your answer to this one, Will, regarding and by the way, Andrew, go ahead and drop. Oh, she's changing the link. Oh, I'll just mention it now. The link for the Monday night event, which is Hacking the Insider Risk Summit on the 13th, that is available as well. For those of you who are clicking in, this is a bad time. This may be a better time for you as well. I think it's at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. This one. All right, Will. I'm sorry. What metrics do you collect on adoption, and what have you sort of changed as a result of the metrics you've seen?
So I'm on the consumer side. I have to rely on the service and software providers to provide the metrics.
Mm-hmm.
It is log in, log outs, basically use throughout the day, time series, etc. But then what happens? Because again, I'm on the implementation and software side, consumer side. What happens when the software falls short and the adoption rate is abysmal or very low? What do I do then? My hands would be tied. So I would have to basically rely on the product managers as well as the product teams on the software developer side to help me basically figure out how to solve this. I often find that most aren't interested necessarily to build that empathy factor from a consumer and sort of customer perspective to understand what we're dealing with here. And there are many reasons. Obviously, one of the reasons would be, let's face it, I work for a startup. The run rate on an annual basis is going to be pretty low. Mm-hmm. But those are also opportunities because it is fairly low, and we could be super nimble, and we could basically go through the journey together to figure out, okay, where is the shortcoming and how do we solve this? So I wholeheartedly have to rely on my providers to be able to enable me and empower me. That's my answer. I know it's a long-winded one, and I sort of danced around it, and I realized that.
No worries. I got another quick question. We'll answer this in a few minutes, and then we'll jump to our game. From Siddharth Saraut, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Do training induction programs really help in changing employees' behavior towards security? So when is maybe... I don't want to universally say, all training good, all training bad. When does training work? When does training not work? Because people have different reactions to the different kinds of it. Will, I'll start with you here. You're nodding your head as to what works, what doesn't. When does it work / not work?
What works is when you tailor it, and you tailor it per profile and personas, and you don't treat it as if it's all or nothing. And that's what doesn't work. When you approach it with a blanket, statement that says everybody goes through this training no matter what, when it's not necessarily relevant to their day-to-day, that doesn't work. What does work is to be able to tailor the narrative around the training, and to make sure your audience is the right people for the training material and content. So basically read the room.
Well, I mean, and then I'm assuming just invite the people who are not using the product that need to be using, kind of a thing. I got to assume, and the people who are on, they don't need the training.
Exactly. Let's face it. If I go to technology partners, I probably will take it easy on them because they understand it. Mm-hmm. If I were to sort of approach other teams who aren't necessarily technical savvy, I might have a different approach, and I might actually provide a level of warmth and be a little bit more, I guess, less technical about the topic.
All right. And let me remind everybody, we want to know your unique tips. I see already they've come in from Brian and Kira, so thank you so much for that. Boyan, I'll throw it to you. When does training work / not work? Anything to add to what Will said?
Yeah, it only works if the person's actually getting something out of it at the end of the day, if their life is made easier. I'll give you an example. Before I started this company with my co-founders, I actually worked in security, and one of the things I rolled out was a phishing training campaign. Right, we did.
We've heard these all the time.
We did employee phishing, and we ran the campaign without telling anybody, and 30% of people fell for it. And then we did the training, and then 33% of people fell for it. I'm like, okay, so clearly this isn't working, and once we actually started tailoring it to the individual department, where we would talk to our traders, for example, because this was at a financial institution. We tailored it to their particular job and how it affects them. Then things started improving, but before that, it was just terrible.
Hey, I'll go on the air and record and say, David, apologies about that. What you just proved is that your game is really good with phishing, but you really didn't help anybody. And now they probably have a level of distrust with the information security team. And I've experienced that full-handedly. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, we got a call came in.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, I have not yet read these, but I'm just going to the one that's been voted up the most. Here we go. These are bad ideas that have come in, best voted bad ideas, as determined from our audience, who is also very, very smart. And by the way, I don't know if you all know this, incredibly good looking too. And they've come up with the bad ideas, and you have to play the Department of Yes and determine why you actually want to do these horrible ideas, okay? So here we go. Here's the first one. Change, and I'll make you answer this one first. Change the process over a holiday, and then when everyone comes back in, take the week off, and it be available to answer questions. I'm going to say, and don't be available to answer questions. Have an out of the office reply to just say, read attached PDF manual. All right, why do you want to do this?
You want to test out the team's reactiveness to understand how quickly they can adopt.
Hooray! Perfect answer. That is a perfect answer. Boyan, why do you want to do this?
It's a great way to test who can sink or swim, who can figure stuff out, who can at your company. And the bottom 20%, you just get rid of them.
I hate myself for this.
Oh, man. By the way, these quotes are so being pulled. I want to just say, excellent answers, both of you. Yes. Overhire, do this, see who fails, dump them. Excellent. I love that. All right. Here, who's the next one? Who's the next one? By the way, who was that? That was a great one. Speak up if that was yours, because we're going to want you at 40 minutes past the hour. Okay. This is also high. Ask, Boyan, you answer this first one. Ask human resources for the contact info for the spouses/family contacts of your workforce, and send them requests to apply peer pressure to use the product. Another interesting tactic. Why do you want to do this? And we did talk about peer pressure working.
I think this is just a great way to improve camaraderie across your entire team by having direct access to their immediate family members.
Kim Kennedy's for the first. All right. I like that. Immediate access family members. Make it a little on the creepy side, but I do still like it. Will, why do you want to do this?
Spouses have a really good way of persuading their spouses to remain employed.
Even better. Now, I'm going to throw something else on that you didn't think about. He said the spouses know their partners a lot better than you do. So they'll know what will push their buttons. You don't necessarily as well.
Oh, boy.
And Fred, okay, so we got Kim Kennedy. Kim Kennedy and Fred Groom, two that have not had winning ones, and they're going to join us at 40 minutes past the hour. And so in 7 minutes, I want Kim and Fred to be ready. So if you don't have your webcam and microphone ready, please get it ready. And also, let me also mention that the best bad idea poll is you can drop the best bad idea poll, and if we have enough of the unique good ideas, please put those up. Let's go back to our questions here. Hold it. That's a unique idea poll. Yes, unique tips have gone up. Please vote for your favorite unique tip. And the Monday video chat link is open. Please click on that. All right, let's go to our questions. By the way, you guys are doing great. By the way, kudos to both of you.
Thank you.
This is around our. I'm going to sort of amend this question here. This is from DG, and I don't know who DG is, but DG, speak up if you want to mention what your full name is. Best way to build credibility in a new organization. I'm going to specifically say, is there something with a rollout, to amend DG's question, that will help build your credibility? Like, hey, we're doing this for you. We know you want this kind of a thing. This is to make your life easier, Will. Like, is there something that a rollout can improve, like the company brand overall in general?
So first of all, DG Dolce Gabbana.
Dolce
Yeah.
Gabbana, yeah.
Credibility. I think it has to
Pause
do
this
with
idea. Pause this idea. I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
I got a better setup question for you, Boyan. Customers, they've rolled out your product, had a lot of success with rolling out your product. What has the mood, attitude changed with the company after the rollout of your product? Like, is there a before and after story you can tell? Like, the life has gotten better, this is more productive, they're happier, yada, yada, anything of that level?
Yeah, the obvious one is, like passwords, 35% of help desk calls are usually passwords related as well as costs. So that before and after is very obvious to a lot of companies, and lots of people are very proud of it. But one of the coolest things that I see is in the aftermath, and it's actually after, let's say an employee is using our product at their company. The coolest part is after they quit their company. Because after they quit their company, they go to work at another company and they walk through the door and they say, how come I have to use a password? That is the coolest thing. And I see that happen more and more frequently, where they reach out. They're like, I just started this job. This sucks. I just got an RSA token, dude. Like, what are they doing to me? Please help.
You know what? This is true, I would say, of a lot of technology, in the sense of once you experience the better thing, there is no way you want to go back. And when you go back, it's like it becomes infuriating in a sense. So I can totally see that happen. Then they become your champions for you inside the office. All right, back to you, Will, on this one. And let me add, DG, he or she said that they're brand new to an organization. They need to roll a ton of stuff out, and they have no credibility coming in whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, what would your advice be to that person in that situation?
It's still difficult for me to sort of figure out why worry about credibility. But I also think that if you're new in our organization, and if you have to go at this alone to build credibility, that may actually be the wrong approach. So really, what is the intended outcome here? And that's unclear to me. So that's why I actually I sort of stumbled on it. I got the blank face, So I think if you wanted to establish credibility, you really have to actually work on the soft skills first. Championship. You have to identify your stakeholders. And I know that sounds like the default and generic mantra here, but you're not in this alone. I don't think ever any scenario you would ever be alone to sort of establish credibility. But I will say that if you were hired to effectively to implement something, I think you've already gone past the credibility point, because let's face it, you've gone through the interview process, you've auditioned, etc. So you're past that point. So you need not worry about credibility. Worry about how you implement it.
No, but and we've all kind of had this when starting a new job, in the sense of, Will, you have a new job at Rhino. Was there a point at Rhino where you were given kind of a grand introduction, like, here's Will, he's running security and IT here. We are thrilled. He has this experience with this. It is so awesome. Like, they build you up to a position like, all right, now I can start.
Absolutely. Yeah. And David dropped. Oh no. We're going to keep going. I'll be David Spark for the time being. But to David's point and question, so look, here's the thing is our CTO, there's actually two parts to this. I built credibility again through the interview process, and that was effectively my audition. I'm basically auditioning for them, and I'm interviewing them as much as they are with me. And my pitch to them was, here are the things that I want to do. Are you willing to work with me? And the answer was an astounding yes. Beyond that, on my first, second week, third week, I was having conversations with everyone in the company from a stakeholder perspective. Welcome back, David. I'm going to turn it back to you.
That was bizarre. I don't know exactly what happened.
But my first one-on-one with our CTO was, and this is the show of maturation in the organization structure, is he asked me very specifically, he said, what sort of format do you want to go through to effectively show who you are, what you are going to do, your initiatives? And that was on him. So I rely on basically the other C-levels execs to really not necessarily put me on a pedestal, but sort of like, show their support behind me. That automatically establishes the sort of like the hierarchy and the credibility. And I don't mean to optimize for a hierarchy, but that's just the way the world works. So from there, my intent, they've given me the platform as much as you have given me the platform in this live show, is to be able to explain and articulate the roadmap, the initiatives, and to be able to sort of like, win the hearts and minds of the natives. In a way, and this is my stupid analogy, I just got I got parachuted in behind the enemy lines, and I now have to fight my way through it. And it's not a battle, but it is something that you have to work on it. You have to basically like, establish that, you are the domain expert, what you're doing, and you have to be able to sort of like explain and articulate the things that we will do in the context of change, which is the only constant to be able to successfully implement technology, to up the ante on your program, the whole 9 yards.
On that topic, sorry, a little bit, like, a lot of times, especially if it's a senior level hire, these decisions are not made. There's not consensus when that hire is made. So 3 of the 5 people that you probably interviewed with, or a lot of people interview with, probably are very gung-ho and very passionate about bringing that person on board and trust them to make an impact. But there's 2 people that were like, I'm not so sure. And for those
how they
people,
feel about you, Will? 2 people don't not too thrilled about you.
A little more than 2 people, but that's okay.
But for those people, you got to find your quick wins, and then very quickly show those quick wins. Like, I came in here, I took this thing, I deployed it. Here it is, it's working. Put those people in a box and not let them, potentially, spread nefarious things.
And those are the 2 people who I actually would spend more time with
Absolutely.
than anybody else. 100%.
I'll tell you a quick user adoption story. My mother-in-law and I, well, actually before she became my mother-in-law, didn't have the world's greatest relationship. She was addicted to her iPod. Now, this was the days of the iPod where they had like the scroll wheel days. She didn't realize that you could like fast forward and rewind by literally like, scrolling back and forth. I showed her how to do that. And it was like I took a thorn out of the lion's paw. Like, it was like, oh my God, you can do that. So it was a user experience, user adoption thing, like, dude, but it ingratiated her in me like you wouldn't believe. I think that was like the moment. I also gave her grandchildren too, and that helped as well. But but I would think is, like you were talking about customizing, if you can find that little tiny point of pain, in her case was the scrolling back and forth of what that is, and it could be unique to everybody. You never kind of know. There is always that eye-opening moment, like, oh my God, I got to do this, like, and they'll rush to it. Boyan, have you seen those little moments? You must, because going from passwords to passwordless. What are just the tiny little hook that they see that does that eye-opening moment?
The clear one that I can see, I have a personal one and a business one. The business one is when you know that feeling you get when you have to pick up the phone and call your help desk to reset your password.
Oh,
it's one of the idiot. It's the worst. So you have to do it. You get on the phone with some person, and they don't want to be talking to you. So, but at the end of the call, they reset your password. At the end of the call, then they tell you, hey, there's this new technology that's already on your computer, and you don't have to use passwords anymore. Sign up right now while we're on the phone, and then you don't have to call me anymore. Like that is like a huge thing, and companies love it. The other one is my mom didn't want to get a smartphone. She wanted to keep using her Nokia. Mm-hmm. And when I showed her she can video chat with me, because I live in New York, she lives in Kentucky, it was a game changer. It was like immediate, this is what we're doing.
My parents figured out, and my mother-in-law figured out Skype as soon as they had grandchildren. That was they figured it out. Exactly. All right. We have to bring in our 2 best bad idea contestants. This would be Kim and Fred. So please, let's invite both Kim and Fred on. We're going to be playing. Essentially, they were going to defend why their bad ideas are truly the worst, and the 2 of you have to determine, in a kind of a what's worse scenario. Here's Fred. Fred has joined us as well, and Kim will be with us in just a second. You have to determine which is worth purely from a risk perspective. Essentially, what would cause the most damage, and Fred and Kim have to explain which was. And Fred, you had the second one, correct, about the human resources? Okay.
Yep, that was mine.
And Kim had the first one. Let's see if Kim will get on in just a second here. Hopefully she'll be joining us in but a moment. Kim is trying to get on. All right, well, we'll start with you, Fred.
Right.
Bad idea, Thunderdome. Oh, I like that, John Prokop. All right, so repeat what your bad idea is. This was the human resources leaning on the spouses or what. Why is your idea the worst? Why would this cause the most damage?
Well, it would cause the most damage because, I think it's just from a reputational damage from the organization. If I was going to, know that my spouse received something from my company saying, hey, you need to sign up for this service, you need to do this item at work. So first thing she's going to say is, what's this about? And now I'm going to catch flack at home. I also understand the point where, hey, if my wife asks me to do something, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to go do it and take care of it because.
So that's the pro of it.
That's the pro, but the con obviously is that you're destroying the trust between your HR department and security team or / marketing effort to promote these features, promote this new application by thinking like, well, gosh, if they're going to contact my family about this, what else are they going to contact my family about? So, right. I think it's just that destruction of trust, and like if this HR department's doing these shady things, it's not good. The other opportunity is that it gives the HR department a chance to clean up their data and make sure they have correct contact information for spouses and family members. But so there's that.
All right, Kim's unfortunately not going to be able to make it. But repeat what was Kim's? Kim's bad idea was pretty horrific too.
That was do it on a weekend, right? And be out of office.
No, that's
holidays.
Yeah. Send out essentially sign it up and then just send it out, put out a holiday. And the idea is like check the PDF, figure it out on your own kind of a thing. So I'm sorry, Kim, it's not able to come on. But so Boyan, which one do you think is going to cause the most damage? The one of just do it and walk away and let everyone else figure it out, or the getting peer pressure from the family? Will, what do you think?
Boy, that's a tough one.
They are, by the way, both very creative and good. Kudos to you, to Will and Kim on both of these.
Yeah, I have to go with Kim.
Kim's, yeah? And why? Why do you think that caused more damage?
I mean, if you're leaving a trail of destruction behind you.
How do you know? If you write a good FAQ, you shouldn't have if your product is easy enough to use.
Somebody who writes good technical documentation.
It's a sign on how good a writer you are and how good your product is. If it can't survive that and you need tech support, maybe your product's no good. Huh? You ever think of that? All right, you think Kim's the worst. Boyan, which one do you think's the worst?
I think depending on the technology, like with our technology, if people can't use it on Monday morning when they show up to work, they're not working. Yeah. So, that is a tremendous trail of destruction and a big impact on the organization. So I would say that one. I think the HR one we've been doing for a long time, right? When you were a kid and you got a bad report card and you had to get your parents to sign it, same thing, right? Your spouse having to sign your lack of adoption of a new technology. I think that ultimately Kim's is definitely more destruction, but the HR one is more entertainment.
I would also say I don't think the HR one's that horrible because, Fred, take a look at it this way. How often do you have like a company picnic and they invite the whole family over and part of that?
Yep.
So the company does get involved in our personal lives. It does happen.
Well, no, they do, but they may not after this event, right? So, how much? It's another message from your company again. Why are we going through all this? And, why is this coming in? And they may not be as ready to go to that company picnic or be as supportive of, when the spouse has to work late or, it's another work thing. It's like, oh, well, you'd be done sooner if you'd use this tool. Right. I mean, there's a whole bunch of, there's tons of personal animosity that could be relieved or something if HR wasn't involved in contacting spouses. So I think Kim's idea
Fred,
is very creative.
You're assuming all the negative. What if all of a sudden
that's what we do, right?
It could be the opposite.
Fred is a real InfoSec practitioner when he goes on the pessimistic side.
No,
that's right.
But think about it this way: that the wife's getting more involved in the husband's, or vice, the husband's getting more involved in the wife's job, and they're learning more about their job. There's actually, people talk about their work at the dinner table. They actually show that they care, and who knows, it may bring them better together, have better marriage as a result of it. It could go the complete opposite way, Fred.
No, you're absolutely right. And in all seriousness, during this pandemic, where I've been working from home for the last 18 months, I've been able to share, in a safe and secure way, obviously, stories with my wife about things that happen at work. And she has a better understanding. She understands the purposes of MFA and why it's important. I mean, she has a much greater grasp on info security topics than she had 2 years ago. So no, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of positive of sharing.
But Will had the right response. Spoken like a true security person. Always go pessimistic.
True. Very true.
Fred, thank you so much. I'm so sorry Kim couldn't join us. We are less than 10 minutes from wrapping this sucker up. And by the way, everyone's been great. Everyone, please, if you haven't clicked the link at the bottom of the screen to register for the Monday video chat, Hacking the Insider Risk Summit, it's going to be a ton of fun. Please register for that one as well. It's at a different time than we normally do. And stick around. In just a few minutes, that link is going to change to our meetup that we're going to have at the very end of the show. I want to talk a little bit about that initial, because we haven't talked enough about this, and that what could, in any kind of development process, what could you be thinking about or doing early on to be thinking about how are we going to improve the rollout of this? Because I get the feeling it's always kind of an afterthought, in the sense that we make this and then it becomes like, oh crap, how are we going to get everybody to use it? To a degree. I know it's not fully, because I know user experience is part of the development, but I got it. I can't imagine it's a day one, or is it a day one? Boyan.
So we were discussing this shortly before we hopped on this, and it's this concept of, if you are providing a technology solution as a business, and your business is not using that technology solution, and you haven't found a way to best operationalize it with your own people, you're going to fall flat on your face immediately. So that's one thing that you can do very easily, because guess what?
I'm assuming you did that, yes?
Of course. And it's your
So what did you learn in the just rollout to the hyper employees? What did you learn in that process?
We found issues where, people might be on vacation, not getting updates on time, and then things break. We found issues where people even our own employees didn't know how to use the product ultimately, because some things that we thought were obvious just weren't. We found very important ways when we would actually introduce new features to the product, the things that we need to do to make sure that that's communicated properly and that people can learn to adopt it. Because sometimes, even if they're using a product, if you have a new great feature that you really want them to take advantage of, they may not be able to take advantage of it because they don't know it's there, or it's not been communicated properly. So that stuff is so important.
What about you, Will? Have you any sort of day one thought about these kinds of things in terms of development?
Shout out to Ian for eating your own dog food. That's a great term to use in a product perspective. But on my end, soft openings, so to speak. Restaurants do this. Why not do it in tech? To be able to figure it out. But I also think pre-soft opening, you have to, again, find out the people who are the most interested about this. So maybe the opponents of the technology are the ones that, you go to. I don't want to know if it works. I want to know what doesn't work. So being able to sort of pitch it, then go through the process. Let's face it, we're all a family, maybe a slightly dysfunctional family in a company, but being able to identify and tease out those shortcomings, maybe gaps that you didn't think about because you're living in your own bubble, so to speak, to be able to identify those and then do a soft launch to the masses is probably the right approach. And that I have done that before, and it's worked out well. And then there are other scenarios where, there's a company that rhymes with okay, and I think you know who they are, where you say, look, we're going to deploy this. It's going to make your life easier. And here's how it makes it easier, because you don't have to use hardware tokens for MFA, and it just does push notifications when you install their app on your phone and mobile device. And that automatically just opens up a number of opportunities and creates efficiency. And there's people singing and, cheering, and they become your champions. That's how you would go about approaching it.
All right, I'm gonna come back to right to you. I want to do a few wrap up things, and I want to get your final advice on this topic because we're getting to the end here of this. Hold on, where's my window on the? Why is that not showing up? Oh, there it is. There's my window. Here we go. So there is a link at the bottom of the screen that says Hacking the Insider Risk Summit. But in just about 30 seconds, Andrew, I want you to change that to our meetup that we're going to be having. I also want to mention now, 90 minutes from now, or 95 minutes from now, we are doing another live show, same place, same bat channel, right here on Crowdcast. We do the cybersecurity headlines week in review. It's just a 20-minute show. Get a quick summary of the cybersecurity news of the week. If you haven't been listening to our 6-minute shows every day, it's a great way to stay informed. And we have Ed Contreras, who's the CISO for Frost Bank, who's going to be our guest for that as well. Now, stick around for our meetup. You can change that now, Andrew. Please change that link. You see, now, I say it, Andrew does it. That's how awesome Andrew is. You click that link now. You can do it now. You can do it anytime in the next 5 minutes. Please join our meetup. If you've never been a part of it, it's a ton of fun. Just a chance to meet another cybersecurity professional, a series of 5-minute meetings. We do 5 of them, less than a half hour. When else do you get a chance to do that? This is one of those few opportunities. Tell your friends to join us. We do this every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I do want to mention, though, we're not doing it next Friday because of the holiday weekend, but the following Friday after that and the Monday after that, too, which will be an unusual one. Huge thanks to our sponsor, Hyper. That is Boyan's company, for sponsoring this very video chat. We greatly appreciate that. And we greatly appreciate that we're doing this awesome live recording of the CISO Security Vendor Relationship podcast, our first one since the launch of the pandemic. So we're really excited to do that as well. You will hear that in a few weeks, actually. I think the second week of September, you'll hear that. Second week of September. All right. If you want to sponsor a video chat, we have exactly 5 of these left open for sponsorship in 2021. If you're interested in doing that, just ping me at david@CISOseries.com. All right. We have exactly 3 minutes left, and I will start with you, Boyan. What is your final advice on user adoption? Going from the person, DG, who said, hey, I'm new, I got a lot to roll out, to I just got a single product to roll out, or I'm just having a hard time getting these 3 people to accept our tech. What do we do? So it's kind of a gamut of advice. What do you got for these people?
Talk to your people, learn what makes them tick, make it fun for them.
Talk to their spouses?
Yes. Find ways to engage them in their curiosities ultimately about products. Find champions. Find individuals within departments who are most excited, who are eager to adopt new tech, and get them to really champion it and run with it and help you ultimately. And just be honest, be empathetic. Over communicate. People finally start hearing you when you're sick and tired of saying it. So just keep doing that.
All right. That's good advice. I will throw this to you, Will.
Never give up, never surrender. The sense of optimism and security is actually one of the shortcomings. It's almost like, the optimism is like a hang up, but also the best trait and value that we have in security. So yeah, always be tenacious. Make sure that, to Boyan's point, you talk to your customers, and they are, after all, your customers. Don't ever forget that in security. You are not there. You're not the military. This is not some draconian endeavor. So make sure that, you do talk to your customers, make it service-oriented, make sure that, you understand their pain points and build that empathy factor. That is by far the one thing that, I always optimize on, and I will always continue to advocate for that. Treat people as if they're people. Stop calling them users. There's a negative connotation to that.
My dad at his hospital, the administration at his hospital, wanted them to stop referring to their patients as patients, but wanted them to start referring to them as clients. And that incensed my dad, who was a doctor. All right. So, Boyan, I'm going to go to you. Any plug? Look, we got just a few seconds. Any plug you'd like to make for Hyper, for people to check it out, anything like that? We've been talking about it throughout this, but anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, look, the plug for Hyper is the simplest plug. People hate using passwords. If you hate using them, take a look at our tech. If it's right for you, great. If it's not, then maybe some other time. But ultimately, we've made tens of millions of users successful with going passwordless, and we're excited about doing it at the internet scale.
Very good. All right. That was Boyan Simic, who's the CEO, interim CEO over at Hyper. They are, by the way, hypr.com is their website address. And Will Gregorian, who is the head of security and IT operations over at Rhino. Their address is SAY, say Rhino, Rhino as in the animal, sayrhino.com. I want to thank both of you for helping us out. Click the link up at the bottom of the screen. Join us in the meetup. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'll see you there. Andrew, take it.